Hi, and welcome to the New Moon Knitting Podcast. I'm Hillary, and this is episode 13. All right, so today on the podcast, we are right smack dab in the middle of Finish It February. And so I have updates on 5 WIPs that I'm trying to finish by the end of the month, including 1 half-finished object and 1 new cast-on since the last time I filmed. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so my half-finished object this week is 1 sock of the ribbed sock with strong heel pattern by Danielle Elsbeth. This is a cuff down sock pattern with all over ribbing and a strong heel, as the title of the pattern suggests. The pattern is a fingering weight sock, and the gauge is 32 stitches and 44 rows over 4 inches. It is knit on a US 2, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. I went down a needle size and I am using a US 1.5, which I believe is a 2.5 millimeter needle. The suggested yarn is Patterned North American Croy sock, Knit Picks, Stroll Fingering, Solids, Heathers, Tonals, and Twists, and Comfy Cozy Knits Merino Nylon socks, so a couple of great sock yarns. I am using a Shopple Wool Zauber Ball, and this color is 2248. It's just these really lovely like dark navies and other kind of blues and burgundies and some like very muted mustard colors. So it creates like, I don't know, a very kind of moody sock, which I think is perfect for this time of year, even if like I think maybe the colors lean themselves a little more fall. I think because of the way they're saturated and things like that, they make me think of a moody winter day. So the pattern comes in 4 sizes. I am knitting the 3rd size, and these socks are for my mom. So for Christmas, I knit my mom a pair of the country socks, which were an alternative pattern if you buy the Wild Wool Trail socks by Jen Joyce Designs. And so I made the trail socks for myself, and then I made a pair of the country socks for my mom, and she really liked the socks that I made her. She said they fit very well, and she wears them all the time, and so she was asking if when I had time if I could make her a second pair of socks. And so I wanted to make her another pair, and I wanted a similar construction just because I knew she really liked the way those ones fit. And so I decided to find another pattern that used a strong heel because that's what that pattern uses. And I also like the 2x2 ribbing all over because I think it gives the sock enough stretch to easily go on, but then it also like keeps it tight enough against the leg where like a stockinette sock, you don't get as much of that differential. So here is my, here is my first sock of the pattern. You can really see the way that like these colors really kind of like subtly like blend into each other. This is probably the boldest kind of stripe you get, is this blue in there. But yeah, it gives you like a really nice idea of how this yarn works up. Some Zauber balls, and I actually have an example farther on in this podcast, they have a lot more contrast, but I think this is like a very nice color if you're looking for something that's a little more subdued, I guess. All right, so the strong heel construction is a really nice construction if you are looking to do something that has a little bit more give to it in kind of the widest part of the foot. So the issue I think sometimes people have, and I've certainly had this problem before, is if you do like a cut and heel, afterthought heel, forethought heel, wrap and turn heel, any kind of heel where you're just knitting like a tube and then the heel is kind of apart from that, but you're keeping the same number of stitches through the full body of the sock, it can be very tight because that part of your foot, like, this is silly, but like if this is your heel, like this part of your foot here, that's pretty thick. And so getting the sock over that and like fitting comfortably in there can be sometimes like not the best experience for everybody. And so if you knit a heel flap and gusset sock, you end up, picking up a lot more stitches, I feel, in that area. And so it creates a much wider gap in there, which makes socks easier, I think, to take on and off. And the strong heel has like a very similar kind of stitch counts to it. It's just constructed a little bit differently than a heel flap and gusset. So rather than, knitting back and forth across the heel flap and then picking up stitches and then filling in that gusset, you knit in the round all the way across, and you can kind of see, it's hard to see because of the choice of yarn a little bit, but if we look in this triangle here, there's some stockinette stitches between the ribbing here and the slip stitches for the heel. And those are just stitches that you're picking up every other round to create that additional space in the gusset. And then when you get to the heel turn, you do kind of an elongated heel turn to basically get back down to the number of stitches you had before you started working on your heel construction. So yeah, you can see from the sock, right? You have a nice bit of space in here, which makes them a very comfortable sock to wear, I think. I pretty much followed the pattern on this, just a couple of modifications. The pattern is for like a shorties sock, and so I just knit a bunch of extra rounds in the cuff because I know my mom likes taller socks. And the pattern has you do the 2x2 ribbing all the way around the back of the heel. I decided to do, like I kind of showed, I have some just stockinette in between where those gusset stitches are. And then I decided to do slip stitches for the heel where you slip every other stitch, every other row for a little bit of extra strength in those heel stitches back there. The other thing I did was I did a little bit of an anatomical toe. So I've talked a little bit about my ergonomic toe structure, and I think I might be using the wrong terms. I think anatomical toe might be the right one here because I'm adjusting the stitch counts so that they better reflect the anatomy of a human foot. So, where most socks kind of come into like a point in the middle, most people's feet, like your big foot, your big toe is kind of bigger and creates more of a straight line for a bit. And then your other toes kind of align in. So you end up with kind of more like this shape. And so I'm trying to follow that anatomy. And so I think it's actually an anatomical toe, but I've called it an ergonomic toe in the past, but I'm talking about the same thing. So if you see me talk about that, this is the same thing. So I will post down below what my actual formula is, but basically what you're doing is for the first third of your toe decreases, you're only decreasing on the outside here. And then at the very top, you pull both in so that you get this shape that looks a little bit more like your toes than maybe like a regular sock toe would. This is the first time I've done it. And again, this yarn is not the best for showing off the pattern, but I did my ribbing all the way up to the top of the toe. Usually I just knit stockinette flat, and I'll have to double check what the pattern says, but that's what a lot of socks do. But I do think it creates like this one really lovely, like smooth line all the way up to the top of the toe, which I think is a really nice look. So I'm happy I did that. This has been a fun little project to work on. The pattern is pretty well written. I will say the gusset part here is only charted. And I find while I love charting, especially for like cabling and color work, I find for something like this, it's easier for me to kind of figure it out if it's just kind of written out in a pattern because it's a very repetitive process. I do think like you can read the chart and kind of figure out what the pattern is and then not have to like go row by row in the chart, which is kind of what I did. But other than that, it is pretty good pattern. And I've enjoyed making these socks. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I want to say about it for this week. One last time, this is the ribbed sock with strong heel by Danielle Elsbeth. All right, so I actually have one more half-finished object. I had lumped this next one in with my whips, but I did finish the front of my Stella Quilt Cushion by Laura Penrose. This is a garter-stitched pillow cover, and it uses modular knitting to create a quilt motif. The pattern is available for DK and Aran weight yarn. I am knitting the DK weight version. The pattern uses a US 6 needle, which is a 4mm needle. I went down a needle size to a US 5, which is a 3.75mm needle. I needed to do that in order to get gauge. The pattern recommends a couple of different yarns. I am using Cascade Eco Plus Hemp, which is an 80% Peruvian Highland wool and 20% hemp blend. For my base color, it is this kind of off-white cream color. And then for my contrast colors, I am using this Tidal Yarns. Doesn't have this card didn't have a yarn name on it, but it is this lovely 2-ply cranberry colored yarn. Let's see if we can, there we go. Yeah, so this really nice deepish kind of red color. It's slightly less saturated in person, but it's pretty close to what it is. And then I'm also using the Solitude Wool Icelandic. This is their DK weight yarn. It is a 100% Icelandic wool pre-washed, and it is also a 2-ply yarn. And I'm using 3 different colors. This like mustardy yellow, this peach color, and this like light kind of pinky color. So yeah, those are my color palette. And like I said, I have finished the front of my cushion. So yeah, I think it came out really nice. I love the way these colors go together. It feels very like, I think it works really well. Ooh, a little bit of fuzz. I think it works really well with like the motif, like the fact that they're these kind of muted colors, I think works really well with this quilt pattern to it. It feels very like vintage Americana, I guess, to me. But yeah, I really love the way it came out. So basically the way that it's constructed, right, is you start in a corner and you're creating all these different corner to corner squares. And then as you go, you're attaching them as you work them. And, you know, you kind of change the direction and the construction of each one in order to have them line up correctly so that you create this star pattern. I think I've talked a couple times. I had some concerns about whether it was going to lay flat after blocking. So I was getting some like bubbling because I am using different yarns. So the gauge is not probably perfect between all of them. And I thought that my like middle stitches weren't aligned very properly, but I think they actually like, it's still not perfect, but I think they look a lot better than I thought they would. And it's definitely like, I fully blocked it. And I think it's just sitting a lot nicer now. And I think too, once you put like some padding behind it, that's just going to kind of push out any sort of like inconsistencies or anything even further. And it's going to look so nice when it's all done. So yeah, I love the front of this. I also got started on the back. So I had said that a big part of picking this project was I really wanted to use up these Icelandic yarns. And I realized for just the way the pillow is written, just the front has a motif on it. The back is just that white kind of knit corner to corner all the way across. And I wanted to use more of the yarn because clearly after I finished the front, I still had quite a bit left over. And so I was trying to think of other ideas, some ways that I could use more of it. I had asked you all what you thought, and you guys came up with a lot of really good ideas on how to alter the back of the cushion so that it used more of the yarn. And what I ended up doing was basically, I found a picture online of like basically the same quilt star, but the colors were reversed. So the white was the middle of the star, and then all around it were different patches of color. And so that's what I decided to do. I thought that would be the best way to use up the yarn. And so I've made a little bit of progress on this. Let me try to get this so you can see. So yeah, so that's how this is coming up. So you can see where there is white on the front, I just have these like either squares or triangles of the colors, and then the middle of the star and all of the star points will be in the white color. I did consider, there are some versions of the motif where there's like more color in the middle, but I decided I wanted to do the whole star white because I thought it would better complement the kind of like negative space of color to white that's on the front if I do the whole star in white on the back. So yeah, I really like the way that this is looking and coming out. I am really hoping to finish this in February, but I definitely have to get a move on because, you know, it's already, I'm filming this on the 16th, right? And February is a very short month. And so, yeah, I'm making really good progress. And I think I've mentioned I'm planning to do a zipper for the finishing, and I'm still on the fence about that. So yeah, making really good progress, and I really love how this is turning out. So yeah, one more time for this week. This is my progress on the Stella Quilt Cushion by Laura Penrose. Next up, I have an update on my KAL Pullover by Claire Jackson, who's also known as Perfectly Knotted. This is a top-down pullover sweater that's knit at a worsted weight gauge and has a drop shoulder with a little bit of a brioche or tuck stitch detailing right along the shoulder edge, and a really cute split hem. The pattern calls for a US 8, which is a 5mm needle, and a US 7, which is a 4.75mm needle. And the gauge is 18 stitches and 24 rows over 4 inches. It comes in 11 sizes, and I am knitting the 4th size. And the pattern recommends a couple of different treehouse yarns. I am using Cascade 220, and this color is called Tiger Lily, or the color number is 9605. But yeah, as you can see, it's like this super bright orangey red. I would say it's slightly more red in person, but like barely. I think this does a pretty good job of showing off just how like bright this color is, and how much it's very gloomy here today. It's been raining all morning, and you can just see like how much this like brightens up the shot and like the room and everything. So this is the color I'm using. Last time I showed this off, I had done the top and I had just joined under the sleeves. And so I put it on a hanger today to show it off a little better, but I have finished the body on this. So like I said, you start with some short row shaping at the top, and then you join in the round to do most of the kind of yoke shaping up here, or just like the shoulder shaping and chest shaping. And then you split for the sleeves and you work the front and back separate. Then you join, work the rest of the body in the round, and then you do this really nice split hem detailing. So yeah, the two nice details on this, first off, so you can kind of see here, let me cover my face so it shows up a little better. You have a single row of brioche stitch detailing along the shoulder. I will say a couple of mine I think are twisted. I have not done much brioche knitting, and so looking at it, I think a couple of them are not perfect, but I think it'll be okay when it blocks out. And the other nice detail is the split hem. So I took it off the hanger so I can hopefully kind of show it off a little bit better. There we go. So this, you can see you do like a little bit of a ribbing detail on either side of the body before you split, and then you kind of keep that same number of ribbing stitches on when you start the split, and you do that for a couple of rows before you do the full ribbing at the bottom. The pattern has you go down, gives you the option to go down a needle size. For the ribbing, I did it all in the same needle size in that US 8, and I think that turned out pretty well for me. I like the way that ribbing looks personally. I also, and you can kind of see it when I hold it up a little bit, if we turn it, I made the back hem just a little bit longer. Like I think it's 5 rows longer. So around like an inch, maybe like a little bit less than an inch. Yeah, probably about an going back and forth on this one, about an inch longer than the front, because I like that a lot in a split hem when you separate for the back and the front, and the back is just a little bit longer because I love to tuck the front of a sweater in, but I love the additional coverage on the back, that little bit of extra coverage. Up next, I need to check the pattern. They may have you just go straight into the sleeves, but I always like on a pattern when you add the collar after, like if you don't do the collar as you're going down the sweater. I always like to do that first before I start the sleeves, because depending kind of on the construction and stuff of that neckline, it can pull everything up just a little bit when you put those stitches in, and you may end up with sleeves that are too short that way if you do the sleeves first and you get them to the length you think you want, and then you add those stitches and it tightens everything up. So yeah, so I will be doing that first and then moving on. But again, I have to check the pattern. The pattern may tell you to do that anyway. It's a really nice pattern to work with. One thing I like is that all of the sizes are color coded, which is great. I always use my laptop for my for following patterns. I don't print them out or anything. So the different colors for the sizes helps me keep track of what size I'm doing, especially because like I'm not doing one on kind of either end of the sizes. It's sort of in the middle. So counting through kind of the parentheses to make sure I'm at the right one, it's easier for me to remember that, oh, it's the purple one. And yeah, I love this little detailing on the shoulder and that detailing in the hem. I think they're just really kind of smart touches on what's kind of a classic sweater. It's been a really good thing so far. And again, I got my work cut out. If I want to try to finish this by the end of February, I really got to hunker down, but I'm going to try to get it done. So one last time for this week, this is the KAL Pullover by Claire Jackson, aka Perfectly Knotted. All right, up next, I just have a quick update on a pair of vanilla socks that I'm making for myself. So I'm not using a pattern for these. I'm just kind of using what I do for like a standard sock. For socks for me, I do normally do 64 stitches. I did add a couple other stitches, and that is because I'm knitting these on 9-inch circulars. And when I got started, I wanted to have enough stitches on the needles to feel like really comfortable working in that tight little circle. So I think I had mentioned this the last time I showed these, but I really want to make myself a pair of colorwork socks. I have not made a pair of colorwork socks in a long time. And I had started working on the little check socks by Summer Lee. And I found that my go-to method for making socks, Magic Loop, was just giving me a lot of inconsistency in the tension, and that I wasn't used to. Like I've never really had that problem with sock knitting. And so I kind of had to go back to the drawing board to think about how am I going to make a pair of socks, these really cute socks, without causing any of those like tension issues I'm seeing at the points where you kind of have to run your cord through for Magic Loop. And so I had a couple of options, and the first was to try 9-inch circulars. And I have a pair of 9-inch circulars, which is the ones I'm using for these socks. And I've never really liked using them because I just find that I knit English style, and it causes a lot of tension in my hands because there's these little needles and I feel like I'm holding them like this, and it causes a lot of tension. But I wanted to give it another try and knit just like the plainest of socks so that I could get used to the feeling of knitting it and see if I thought I could get through a whole colorwork sock like that. And so I've made a little bit of progress. I'm using another Zauber ball. This one, I will put the number of down below over here because I forgot to look it up. But it is like pinks and white and purple, and it's like very feminine. And yeah, I'll show you. It's definitely got a lot more contrast between the colors than the other Zauberball that I was using for my mom's socks. All right, so I think last time I showed you where I just kind of finished the cuff and started on the body of the sock. These are just like a standard cuff down sock with what I'm going to do is I think this is technically called a forethought heel, because I've added a lifeline of stitches and just like a little piece of scrap yarn so that I can pick up my heel after I'm done. But because I put in where I want it to go, I think it's called a forethought heel, not an afterthought heel. But yeah, you can see there's like a lot of contrast between these colors, but I think it's going to make a very cute pair of socks. And yeah, these are my 9-inch circulars. I still don't love the experience. I miss my nice long needles when I'm doing this, but I will say, as I've gone along, I'm not feeling as much pain. I'm not feeling any pain in my hands. Now, I have been very careful to do this in like smaller chunks of time. And once I start to like feel any kind of discomfort, I stop doing it because I just don't want to run the risk of like hurting anything. But yeah, it's not as bad as I thought. And I do think I could get through a color work sock in this method if I had to. So yeah, again, not much to say about this other than like, I think maybe I can get away with using 9-inch circulars. They will never be my first choice, but I think I could get away with them, and just a cute little pair of socks. So yeah, last time for this week, these are just my vanilla socks by me. All right. And so my last whip for today is a new cast on, which is kind of silly because I said I'm in the middle of Finish It February and I clearly have a lot of work to do on a lot of things. But I've started running again. So I've run like off and on for most of my adult life, and I've done a couple of half marathons, and I just recently like started doing it again, and it's been nice enough here a couple of days this winter that I've run outside. So not like warm by any stretch of the imagination, but kind of that an okay temperature to be like doing an outdoor activity. And so now that I'm running outside again, I wanted to make myself, I guess, a little headband to keep my ears warm when it's cold enough to be running outside. Like that's kind of like one place that I do get cold because I find sometimes wearing a hat can be like too sweaty. So I wanted like a cute little headband that I can throw on when I go running. And I found the Scarlett Headband by Ella Balance. This is a free DK weight headband with this little like twist detail. The pattern uses a DK weight yarn. It is a 21 stitch by 28 row over 4-inch gauge, and it uses a US 6 or a 4mm needle. The recommended yarn is Drops Merino Extra Fine. I am using a fingering weight held double. I have had this skein in my stash for a while, so I'm using more of my stash. And this is Cesium Yarns Merino Sock, which is a 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And this color is called Honey Honey. And I'm holding this double. I absolutely love this skein of yarn. I think this color, it reminds me of like sprinkles. And it's just so fun. But like we can see, I'm not a person that will wear like a garment in this color. I just know I won't get enough wear out of it. And I didn't want this to just be a pair of socks. Like I wanted to, this color is so beautiful. I just wanted opportunities to show it off to the world. And so I thought this would be a really good yarn to use for a little headband because it's just a little pop of color. So it's not like overwhelming, but you really get to show off the beautiful yarn. And also the fact that it's a merino nylon blend, I think will be really good for an accessory that I'm going to be wearing for an athletic activity, because I'll be able to give it a heavy duty wash when it gets sweaty and if it gets gross at all. And I think that merino will be really good for like wicking away sweat and stuff. So that is the yarn and the pattern. And let me show you what progress I have made on it. All right, so this is what it looks like so far. So you can see the holding it double, it really like gives you so many opportunities to see all the different colors in there. What's really interesting too is like some of the lighter colors are pooling on this side, and then some of the more saturated colors are pooling on this side. So it gives me a real chance to like figure out which colors I like more, and then keep those like on the outside of the headband when I finish it off. So yeah, this is a really basic construction. You're just basically, you cast on, I want to say it's like 50 stitches. This is, again, it's a free pattern, so I'm not giving away any trade secrets. But you cast on about 50 stitches, and then you just knit a big tube. The whole thing is a big tube. And then when you're done, you use a special technique to kind of fold and attach the two ends so that they create that really cute headband kind of shape to it. So yeah, the pattern is well written. You know, it's a free pattern. It only comes in one size, but I do think this is something you could probably adjust. If you knew the recipient or if you knew your head circumference, you could just stitch up or down on the number of rows that you do to make the length longer or shorter, depending on what kind of head shape you're trying to fit. The only thing you would need to account for is negative ease, right? Because you probably want a headband to be a little bit smaller so it stays nice and snug. I certainly want mine to be, especially if I'm going to be using it for an athletic activity like running or anything else like that. And also how much kind of length you're going to lose doing that special kind of sewing technique. Like how much of it is going to get used inside of that like twisted kind of knot feature at the end of it. And so, but I do think like with a little bit of fiddling, you could pretty much figure out what you need for that. So yeah, nice, good basic pattern, nice basic kind of mindless stockinette to work on when I want to do mindless stockinette, but I don't want to use the 9-inch circulars. As you can see, I'm using Magic Loop here, my absolute fave. Yeah, again, I think these colors are so pretty, and I'm so happy that I found a way to use them in a way that I can like show them off to the world. So yeah, I'm hoping, depending on how much yarn I have left, I definitely want to figure out something else to do. So I use up all this yarn. One thing I was thinking is like a neck gaiter. I don't know if maybe that's not a universal term, but it's kind of like a cowl, but it tends to be like a little bit tighter, and it's used for more like outdoor activities than like being like a pretty thing you show off. That's what I think of when I think of a neck gaiter. But I think that might be, because then that would be like another nice little running kind of accessory that I could make with this. But we'll see how much yarn this actually ends up using since I'm holding it double. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about that this week. This one last time is the start of the Scarlett Headband pattern by Ella Balance. All right, so that is all the updates I have for today. I think I'm making good progress for Finish It February, but there are definitely a couple of things that are at risk to not be done in the next less than 2 weeks. We're at like 12 days now, but we'll see what we get to. You know, it's okay. It's about the process. It's not about the end result. And wherever I am at the end of February, I'll be a lot closer to finishing these things than where I was at the beginning of the month. So it's all good. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm doing, please go ahead and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching this, and I will see you all in the next one.